Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Madhava Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Madhava Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivara Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivara Yashodanandana Yamuna Tira Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivara Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivara Yashodanandana Yamuna Tira Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Radha, Madhava Jai Radha, Madhava Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Gaurakinandi, Jai Vishupad Paramahamsa, Pri Bhradakachaja Stotra Satta, Sri Srimad, His Divine Grace, Sarabhai Sharanaravinda Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada ki, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki, ISKCON BBT, Founder Acharyas Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada ki, Namacharya Sri Haridas Thakur ki, Samaveta Bhakti Vrinda ki, Harinam Sankirtan ki, Grantara Srimad-Bhagavatam ki, Jai Gaur Pimanandi. All glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru, to Sri Gauranga, all glories to Sri Prabhupada. Om Agyanatimirandasya Gyananjana Sharakaya Dakshurindaritam Jena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namah Sri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Jita Padakamalam Sri Gurun Vaishnavam Sya Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatan Vitam Tvam Sadivam Tadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Vivishakam Sya He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Taptakanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vansakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Vyaivacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Narayanam Namaskritya Dharam Shaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudire. Before reciting the Srimad-Bhagavatam, which is our very means of conquest, let us first offer respectful obeisances unto Narayana, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, unto Narayan Rishi, the supremmost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Nasta Prayasavadvishu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Tamashloke Bhaktir Bhaviti Naistiki. By regularly hearing the Srimad Bhagavatam and by rendering a service unto the pure devotee, all that is troublesome within the heart becomes destroyed practically to nil, and loving devotional service unto the Supreme Lord, who is praised with transcendental songs, becomes established as an irrevocable fact. Idam Bhagavatam Nama Puranam Brahmasamitam Utamashloka Charitam Chakara Bhagavan Rishi Nishreyasaya Lokasya Dhanyam Swasyaya Namaha. This Srimad Bhagavatam, known as the Grantaraj, the king of all Vedic literatures, is the literary incarnation of God. It is compiled by the incarnation of God, the Srila Vyasadeva. It is meant for the ultimate good of all people. It is all successful, all blissful, and all perfect. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Mukam karoti vācaram pangum langayate girim yat kripa tamaham bande Sri Gurum Dinataranam. Yat kripa tamaham bande Sri Gurum Dinataranam. Hare Krishna. Welcome to our morning Bhagavatam class. Today we begin a new chapter, the last of the 5 chapters where Narada Muni is presenting his thesis on the topic Srimad-Bhagavatam, his dissertation. We're in that thesis mentality. So this is chapter 11. I'm sorry, chapter 15. The first one was 11. The Perfect Society for Social Divisions, chapter 11. And then chapter 12, the Perfect Society for Spiritual Divisions. And then it was chapter 13, the behavior of a perfect person. Chapter 14, we just finished yesterday. The ideal family life, which had altogether 42 verses. Most of the chapters have about that. But this chapter has 80 verses. It's a big one. This is like the Maha chapter on Varnasrama. 80 verses and many wonderful instructions are there. Today we will be doing chapter, rather text 1 to 5. So text number 1. Sri Narada Uvacha Karma Nista Dvijaha Kechit Tapo Nistha Nripapare Swadhyayi Anye Pravachane Kechana Jnana Yogayo Sri Narada Uvacha Karmanisha Dvija Kechit Taponista Nripapare Swadhyaye Nye Pravachane Kechana Jnana Yogayo Sri Narada Uvacha Karmanistha Dvija Kvechit Taponistha Nripapare Swadhyaye Nye Pravachane Kechana Jnana Yogayo Sri Narada Uvacha Karmanistha Dvijakechit Taponistha Nripapare Swadhyaye Nye Pravachane Kechana Jnana Yogayo Sri Narada Uvacha Karmanistha Dvija Kechit Taponistha Nripapare Swadhyaye Nye Pravachane Kechana Jnana Yogayo Sri Narada Uvacha Karmanistha Dvija Kechit Taponistha Nripapare Swadhyaye Nye Pravachane Kechana Jnana Yogayo Sri Narada Uvacha Why not? Sri Narada Uvacha Karmanistha Dvija Kechit Taponistha Nripapare Swadhyaye Nye Pravachane Kechana Jnana Yogayo Sri Narada Uvacha Narada Muni said, Karma, Karmanistha, attached to ritualistic ceremonies, according to one's social status as a Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, or Shudra. Dvijaha, the twice born, especially the Brahmanas. Kechit, some. Tapanistaha, very much attached to austerities and penances. Niripa, O king, apare, others, swadhyayi, in studying Vedic literature. Anye, others, pravachane, delivering speeches on Vedic literature. Kechana, some, jnana yogayo, in culturing knowledge and practicing bhakti yoga. Report by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki. Rather, the translation. There's no purport actually to this one. The translation by Srila Prabhupada. Narada Muni continued, my dear king, some brahmanas are very much attached to fruitive activities. Some are attached to austerities and penances. And still others study the Vedic literature. Whereas some, although very few, cultivate knowledge and practice different yogas, especially Bhakti Yoga. Kind of repeat after me. Narada Muni continued, my dear king, some brahmanas are very much attached to fruitive activities. Some are attached to austerities and penances. And still others study the Vedic literature, whereas some, although very few, cultivate knowledge and practice different yogas, especially Bhakti Yoga. Text number 2. Jnana nishaya dhyani kavyanyanancham Ichchata daivecha tad abhavesyad itarebhyo yatharhatah. Translation and purport. Yeah. By Srila Prabhupada. A person desiring liberation for his forefathers or himself should give a charity to a brahmana who adheres to impersonal monism, jnana-nistha. In the absence of such an advanced brahmana, charity may be given to a brahmana addicted to fruitive activities, karma kanda. Report. There are two processes by which to get free from material bondage. One involves jnana kanda and karma kanda, and the other involves upasana kanda. Vaishnavas never want to merge into the existence of the Supreme. Rather, they want to be everlastingly servants of the Lord, to render loving service unto Him. In this verse, the words anantyam ichchita refer to persons who desire to achieve liberation from material bondage and merge into the existence of the Lord. Devotees, however, whose objective is to associate personally with the Lord, have no desire to accept the activities of karma kanda or jnana kanda. For pure devotional service is above both karma kanda and jnana kanda. Anya bilashita shunyam jnana karma janavritam. In pure devotional service, there is not even a pinch of jnana or karma. That means motivated jnana, motivated karma, or speculative jnana and motivated karma. Consequently, when Vaishnavas distribute charity, they do not need to find a Brahmana performing the activities of Jnanakanda or Karmakanda. The best example in this regard is provided by Advaita Goswami, who after performing the Shraddha ceremony for his father offered charity to Haridas Thakur, although it was known to everyone that Haridas Thakur was born in a Mohammedan family, not a Brahmana family, and was not interested in the activities of Jnanakanda or Karmakanda. Charity, therefore, should be given to the first-class transcendentalist, the devotee, because the Shastras recommend Muktanam api siddhanam narayana parayana sudulabha prasantatma ko tvishvapi mahamune. Translation to a higher position than a Jnani. And therefore Advaita Acharya selected Haridas Thakur to be the person to accept his charity. The Supreme Lord also says, Name bhaktas chatur vedi mad bhakta swapacha priyoho tasmai deyam tato prayam tacha pujo yata yaham. Translation, this is, wow, Prabhupada gives a long translation. This is a verse from the Hari Bhakti Vilas 10:1-7. Even though a person is a very learned scholar of the Sanskrit Vedic literatures, he is not accepted as my devotee unless he is pure in devotional service. However, even though a person is born in a family of dog eaters, he is very dear to me if he is a pure devotee who has no motive to enjoy fruitive activity or mental speculation. Indeed, all respect should be given to him, and whatever he offers should be accepted. Such devotees are as worshipable as I am. Therefore, even if not born in a Brahmana family, a devotee, because of his devotion to the Lord, is above all kinds of Brahmanas, whether they be karma kandis or jnana kandis. Okay, last portion here. In this regard, it may be mentioned that Brahmanas in Vrindavan, who are karmakandis and jnanakandis, sometimes decline to accept invitations to our temple because our temple is known as the Angrezi temple. Angrezi temple. Or Anglican temple. It's like when visiting villages for the Dharma Gogam Yatra, one of the questions on the survey was different types of medical treatment. What kind of medicines do you take? You take Ayurvedic medicine? Do you take homeopathic medicine? Or do you take allopathic medicine? And people in village, they don't understand allopathic. For them, allopathic is English medicine. English medicine. Same kind of thing here. Foreign. Anglican temple. But in accordance with the evidence given in the Shastras and the examples set by Advaita Acharya, we give prasadam to devotees regardless of whether they come from India, Europe, or America. It is the conclusion of the Shastra that instead of feeding many Gyanakandi or Kamakandi Brahmanas, it is better to feed a pure Vaishnava regardless of where he comes from. This is also confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita 9:30. Apichat suduracharo bhajate mammanandya bhakka sadhureva samantadya samyag vyavasito hi saha. Translation: even if one commits the most abominable actions, if he is engaged in devotional service, he is to be considered saintly because of he is properly situated. Thus, it doesn't matter whether a devotee comes from a Brahmana family or non-Brahmana family. If he is fully devoted to Krishna, then he is sadhu. So, reading the translation here again. A person desiring liberation for his forefathers or himself should give charity to a Brahmana who adheres to impersonal Buddhism, Jnana-nistha. In the absence of such an advanced Brahmana, charity may be given to a Brahmana addicted to fruitive activities, karma kanda. In the introduction of this chapter, Srila Prabhupada gives an overview of what will be discussed, and to a large extent, Narada Muni will be describing different types of brahmanas. Just like there is Brahmana Vaishnava, who is in the Grihastha ashram, Brahmana Vaishnava who will be in Brahmacharya ashram, or Vanaprastha, or Sannyas. Brahmana, this is part of the important understanding actually regarding knowing about what is the connection between Varna and Ashrama. Often, Srila Prabhupada, he would explain, first is Varna. First is Varna, then is Ashram. So there's a natural arrangement that those who are brahmanas, that is part of the Vedic culture, Varnasrama culture. A brahmana can accept any of the ashrams, isn't it? Brahmana, the 4 ashrams are open to a brahmana. He can be brahmachari for his whole life. It's like we see in the Gaudiya Math, we see some brahmacharis. They like old brahmacharis. Something we were not accustomed to seeing in our early days in ISKCON. In ISKCON, we didn't have any old brahmacharis. All very young, brahmacharis. So brahmana can either remain as brahmachari, or brahmana can enter into the grihastha ashram, can also enter vanaprastha ashram, and also sannyas ashram. Whereas a kshatriya, 3 ashrams are available. Kshatriya can also remain brahmachari. Grandfather Bhishmadev is a prime example. Although generally kshatriyas take up householder life. So the 3 ashrams open for kshatriya, brahmachari, grihastha, and vanaprastha. Generally, that question was asked to Prabhupada, did the Pandavas take sannyas? Because we see, there's a picture in the Bhagavatam, Yudhishthira Maharaj, when he leaves, after he gets the news that Krishna has finished his pastimes, he decides, okay, well, it's time for Parikshit Maharaj to come in the picture, and I'm out. So we see him walking with a stick. So sometimes people think that he has a danda. It's not a danda. Just like traditionally, in the Vanaprastha ashram, one would also have stick. There are different ceremonies. We don't follow this nowadays. Everyone walking around with a stick. Of course, because one sannyasis and those in the Vanaprastha ashram, they would go to the forest, Vana. So it's good to have a stick when you go. It's good here in Mayapur also. If you walk around too early in the morning, so many jackals are there, or monkeys are there. Yeah. So Brahmana, 4 ashrams are open to him. Kshatriya, 3 are open. Vaishya, 2 are open. And then Shudra, 1, basically. So, of course, as we will be hearing from Narada Muni, this was mentioned in the previous verse here. Amongst all of the different types of brahmanas, those who are especially cultivating knowledge, and practicing different types of yoga, especially bhakti yoga. So it means, as Prabhupada mentions in the purport to Narada Muni, in his previous life as the son of a maidservant, had come in contact with Bhakti Vedantas. So Bhakti Vedantas are those who cultivate knowledge, Vedanta, and especially focus on Bhakti Vedanta. So we belong to the lineage of Bhakti Vedantas because our founder Acharya's title was Bhakti Vedanta. So Prabhupada also makes reference, of course, in the very beginning here to what is called Jnana Kanda, Karma Kanda, section of the Vedas, and Upasana Kanda. So therefore, the position, there's a nice anecdote in this regard. Prabhupada is making reference to Vrindavan and about, sometimes some sadhus, they don't accept our invitation to come to the temple. They don't want to take prasadam from us. Prabhupada is making reference here. Some brahmanas who are in the category of karma kandis and jnana kandis sometimes decline to accept invitations to our temple because it is known as Angreji temple. Yeah. So the anecdote that comes to mind, in the early days, Prabhupada makes reference to this in his lecture series on nectar devotion. In the, I believe, late part of 1972, Srila Prabhupada had a small group of devotees with him in India, and he was in Vrindavan having every day he would lecture on the nectar of devotion. And in his explanation or discussions, on a few occasions, actually, in a few lectures that I've heard, he would kind of point out how it's most unfortunate that the residents of Vrindavan are not fully accepting my disciples, that the sadhus in India have not been trained to properly preach and to properly understand, and so he was making a plea, actually, that the residents of Vrindavan should kindly help this movement as opposed to criticizing or opposing in different ways. So in those early days, naturally, especially from outside of, devotees were coming from different countries, and for most of them, their first time in India. And especially when they come to Vrindavan, Prabhupada explains how Vrindavan is that place where there's like, at that time, Prabhupada writes, 5,000 temples. Takes a while to visit 5,000 temples in Vrindavan. Of course, not all big temples, but Vrindavan is the place of temples. So it is the custom for residents of Vrindavan, and especially those who come to visit, to go from temple to temple, to have darshan of the Lord, etc., like that. And so there was a group of devotees. Among them were some sannyasis who were doing that, going from temple to temple. And they came to one of the temples. I will not mention which temple, but a very famous temple. And because after the disappearance of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, different lineages, Goswami lineage continued, and to this day they continue as well. some of those temples, of course, the deities are very nicely cared for, and but in some temples, the mentality is a little bit like reflecting the point that Prabhupada was making in that lecture in 1972. So when devotees came, they took darshan, like most of them brahmacharis, a couple of them sannyasis, and then Pujari, who was one of those family priests, he was very happy to see, these young Western-bodied, taking darshan. So, as it is a custom, after they took darshan, then he gave them some charnamrita and some little prasadam, and then then he told them that yes, this is one of the very ancient temples, very special deities, and if you, it is very nice that you are taking up to spiritual life and chanting, and if you continue in this way very nicely, then in your next life you'll get opportunity to serve these deities. Maybe you'll be able to. You'll get such opportunity to come and do seva. And then the devotees, after returning to the Krishna Balaram temple, they shared with Prabhupada, as they would normally do, their experience and their exchanges. So they were relating how they went to this particular temple, and the pujari told them that, yes, if you continue to practice nicely, in your next life, you can be born in a Brahmana family and get opportunity to serve, these deities. Prabhupada wasn't happy to hear that, and he was, Prabhupada responded that, actually you should have told that pujari, that priest, that if he continues to serve very nicely, in his next life he may get opportunity to be born in the Hare Krishna movement. Because the same point Prabhupada is making here, that even to this day, there's so many people in India who have a hard time accepting that how is it possible for people who are not born in India, who are not born in a Brahmana family, and who have white skin, how is it that they can be actually bona fide Brahmanas? What to speak of becoming sannyasis? What to speak of becoming gurus? So many people, they cannot accept that. Of course, from Prabhupada's point of view, from Prabhupada's understanding, which is, of course, the correct understanding, is that regardless of what background one may come from, if one fully takes up the process of devotional service in particular, then he can become a liberated soul. He can there is no bar or hindrance for anyone from any country, from any background, to take up to the process of pure devotional service. That is the special quality and characteristics of bhakti or pure devotional service, which has been, of course, nicely explained in the Nectar of Instruction, Nectar of Devotion, like that. And in many ways, it's just like when Lord Chaitanya would encourage people to join in the chanting when he began his Sankirtan movement in Navadvip. then some of the smarta brahmanas didn't like that. Hey, he's not from Brahmana family and he's engaging in these activities. Because Lord Chaitanya, he he would allow. I mean, that's the mission of his the Sankirtan movement, that Krishna consciousness is meant for everyone, and especially the mission of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is to reclaim the most fallen, all the Jagais and Madais, and there's no bar for one to actually take up to the process. So I wanted to cover a few verses here, which are dealing with similar theme. So text number 3. Dvo daive pitri karyetrin ekaikam upayatra va vojayat susamridhapi bhojayat susamridhopi sradhe kuryan navistaram. Translation. During the period for offering oblations to the demigods, one should invite only 2 brahmanas. And while offering oblations to the forefathers, one may invite 3 brahmanas. Or in either case, only 1 brahmana will suffice. Even though one is very opulent, he should not endeavor to invite more brahmanas or make various expensive arrangements on those occasions, which is, of course, this guy wants to come in. Hey, no, just close the door. He thinks it. How is it?
Today's bedroom it was sleeping very nicely and blanket. I saw in the beside of he was sleeping. I was sleeping up. I don't know how he became.
Like what this. A fortunate cat.
Sleeping like this.
Is it, huh? Okay. Where were we here? Yes. Yes. So, yes, yeah, making the point how the very instructions that are being given here, the opposite is actually taking place. That generally when people perform such ceremonies, they invite many people, they invite many brahmanas, and anyway, we can hear the purport here as to why this is not ideal. So the purport to this verse or text number 3, as we have already mentioned, Srila Advaita Acharya, during the generally observed ceremony to offer oblations to the forefathers, invited only Haridas Thakur. Thus he followed this principle, Name Bhaktas Chaturvedi Mad Bhakta Swapaka Priyaha. The Lord says, it is not necessary that one become very expert in Vedic knowledge before he can become my bhakta or devotee. Even if one is born in a family of dog eaters, he can become my devotee and be very dear to me in spite of having taken birth in such a family. Therefore, offerings should be given to my devotee. and whatever my devotee has offered me should be accepted. Following this principle, one should invite a first-class Brahmana or Vaishnava, a realized soul, and feed him while observing the Shraddha ceremony to offer oblations to other forefathers. So there are dangers in it's just like, when you have a guest. When you have a guest, you need to take care of that guest nicely. And if you have too many guests, then you can't do that, isn't it? The intention may be good, but the end result is that if one offends others, then the purpose is not being served. And the next verse also is in reference to feeding brahmanas. Desha kalochita shraddha dravya patrar anani cham samyag bhavanti naitani vistarat swa janarpanat. Translation to text number 4. If one arranges to feed many brahmanas or relatives during the Shraddha ceremony, there will be discrepancies in the time, place, respectability, and ingredients, the person to be worshipped, and the method of offering worship. Yeah, these are the dangers. Prabhupada explains in the purport how Narada Muni has prohibited unnecessarily gorgeous arrangements to feed relatives or brahmanas during the Shraddha ceremony. Those who are materially opulent spend lavishly during this ceremony. Indians spend especially lavishly on 3 occasions. What are the 3 occasions? At the birth of a child, at the marriage, of course, and while observing the Shraddha ceremony. So Prabhupada knows, he's from India. But the Shastra prohibit the excessive expenditures involved in inviting many brahmanas and relatives, especially during the Shraddha ceremony. Interesting. And okay, and text number 5 actually does not have a purport, so I'll just read that. Deshe kale cha samprapte munyanam hari daivatam shraddhaya vidivat patre nyastam kamadug akshayam. When one gets the opportunity of a suitable auspicious time and place, one should, with love, offer food prepared with ghee to the deity of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and then offer the prasad to a suitable person, a Vaishnava or Brahmana. And this will be the cause of everlasting prosperity. So, yeah, same point is being mentioned here. Same message Krishna is giving in the Bhagavad Gita, that he is pleased, he is especially looking for the ingredient of love and devotion. Tesham satata yuktanam bhajatam priti purvakam. With love and devotion, that is the ingredient that Krishna is especially looking for. And Prabhupada, of course, let's see if that's in the translation or word for word. Okay, Muni Annam. What is Muni Annam? Annam is
Giving prasad.
Muni Annam, Prabhupada translates food stuff prepared with ghee. So in many of our temples, they're not preparing or offering Muni Annam. Muni Annam means Muni sadhus, I mean Krishna to begin. Krishna, the best is meant to be offered, should be offered to Krishna. The best is of ghee, of course, ghee. And it is this preparation or this foodstuff or this prasadam that should be offered to sadhus. The food that has been prepared with ghee. And nowadays that's a major challenge because ghee is just not available. It's like ghee is like gold, a rare commodity. One of the many signs of Kali Yuga. We're not even eating properly. We are not cooking properly by not having ghee. Yeah. It should be cow's ghee, not buffalo ghee. I'm just making very interesting how in different states here in India, it's part of the research I'm doing, just kind of winding up on that. There are some states where the the majority of animals for milk are buffalo. Here in Bengal, there's still the majority of milk comes from actually cows. I've not studied all the states in India, but on the list that I have, there's an immediate and obvious contrast between, let's say, Bengal, where there are more cows than buffaloes and more milk from cows, whereas in Andhra and Telangana, it's buffalo land, buffalo country. Yeah. That's why? Telangana, they don't have?
They don't take spiritual.
They don't what?
Take spiritual life.
They don't take to spiritual life. Well, I mean, that's there's many things to be said here. Yes, I mean, there is a difference. There are many differences between buffalo milk and cow's milk, because there are many differences between buffaloes and cows. It's like, you can cuddle a cow. A cow is like a calf, a small calf, where people cuddle cows also. A very prominent and popular practice in America. Our Sri Krishna Purushottam, who's in California, he started a Goshala a few years back. He has nice gear cows. So, people in America, you may not believe this, but you should, because it's true. They'll pay $100 an hour to cuddle a cow, just to be with a cow and to put the head on the cow. This is part of Vedic culture, which is totally forgotten in modern day society. And that is one of the many reasons why viticulture gives, so much importance to cows, because everyone, and that was the case quite recently, even like 30, 40 years ago, practically, at least in villages, every family had cows. Not only one cow, many cows also. Cows, by nature, cows are in the mode of goodness. Cows, if they're not abused, are by nature satisfied. We were reading about the qualities of a Brahmana yesterday, right? Satisfaction. By nature, a Brahmana doesn't complain. Prabhupada would explain that the sign or the characteristic of Shudra is that he's always complaining. And the Brahmana is like, Om Shanti, Shanti, Hari Om, Shanti. Because he's on a different wavelength, on a different consciousness. So this whole element in the Vedic culture, cows are in the mode of goodness. So when we live with cows, when we deal with cows, means we naturally helping us to develop the mode of goodness. That's why it mentions how one of the prayers describing glorifying Mother Cow, how cows and Brahmana belong to the same family. They belong to the same family of those who are situated in the mode of goodness. And unless we are situated in the mode of goodness, we cannot come so easily to pure devotional service. So there's a very interesting aspect, and we see how throughout our villages here in India, what to speak of other places around the world, there are fewer and fewer cows, and people, buffaloes give more milk. Buffaloes give, I heard that most of the sweets, milk sweets, are from buffalo milk. Not here in Mayapur. I hope not. But the regular, sweet shops, maybe it's not all like that, but yeah, because that milk is, you get more cream out of it, you get more thick yogurt out of it, and but the taste is very different. I remember one time going, one of our devotees in somewhere in Andhra, yeah, Andhra or Telangana, and with Hari Kirtan Prabhu. Anyway, very nice devotee, my own disciple. He passed away quite some years back. Anyways, they were serving me prasadam, and then the first chapati comes, and then immediately when I tasted it, they put buffalo ghee. Yes, so the eating habits and lifestyle and whatnot of different communities in different states or different countries definitely is reflected on the consciousness. On the consciousness, yeah. So I'll just read one last verse. Means these were the 5 verses we have read today. And I'll just read the first one. Reread the first one. Narada Muni continued, my dear king, some brahmanas are very much attached to fruitive activities. Some are attached to austerities and penances, and still others study the Vedic literature. Whereas some, although very few, cultivate knowledge and practice different yogas, especially bhakti yoga. So, anything? Yes. Regarding Shraddha ceremony, yeah.
So Advaita inviting the Civilized.
Yeah.
Generally, we see that proper system they are working whole system.
The whole system, yeah.
So is it equal to feeding Brahma? Or whether we go for the whole system or just we call it Vaishnava, then is it equal to or
Oh, okay. So your question is that generally here in India, Shraddha ceremony is quite involved. Many different things involved. So is it that having one qualified Brahmana like Haridas Thakur is sufficient to get the full benefit or result of the Shraddha ceremony, right? Yeah. If we tell that to smarter Brahmanas, they won't be happy. But the fact remains that we were reading that a few days back also, because Narada Muni was speaking about Shraddha ceremony, and I believe the previous chapter, that the two most important activities to be done at a Shraddha ceremony is to chant the holy name, chant the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, and to distribute prasadam. Yeah. So that means that actually a Shraddha ceremony is complete and perfect when especially these two elements are there. Others are like, what do you call it? Coating on the ice. It's like additional. It is secondary. But there are our Goswamis have given some. It's like we don't follow, as Vaishnavas, we don't follow all of the details that generally what we call like smarta brahmanas follow. But some guidelines have been given by, I believe some of those are in the Hari Bhakti Vilas of Sanatana Goswami. But we generally, we practice, just like, we have temples, we perform arati, we perform so many activities, but the main element is in our temples is the chanting of the holy name and also the distribution of prasadam. Yeah. And yeah, well, in the context of temples, Prabhupada was mentioning just a few days back when we were in the previous chapter how temple worship is more for the kanishta adhikaris as opposed to those who are preachers, and that preaching is more important than temple worship. Preaching the holy name, distributing the holy name, and distributing transcendental Vedic literatures. Okay, we can close for now. Jai Grantaraj Srimad-Bhagavatam ki Jai Shri Prabhupada ki. Gaura Pimanandi.
Jai Shri Prabhupada.